Welcome to a special edition of Warbird Tube, where we'll explore the mission of the Lewis Air Legends and one of their most significant aircraft, the Lockheed Constellation C-121 Bataan. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a loyal Warbird Tube fan, we are thrilled to have you with us. If you enjoy what you see, don't forget to spread the word on your favorite social media platform. Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. To find out more about the CAF, our events, aircraft, local units, and the tour schedule of some of those aircraft this summer and fall, visit our website, commemorativeairforce.org. Now, Lewis Air Legends and the Air Legends Foundation were created with a mission to preserve the memory of military pilots and honor their sacrifice. Their goal is to bring airplanes in their collection to as many people as possible, especially young people, in a display of historic air power. The inspiration for this mission came from Rod Lewis, whose boyhood passion for flight, patriotism, and love of American history was sparked by pioneer aviators and heroes. Lewis is the son of an Air Force pilot, and long before he became an oil man and the founder, president, and CEO of Lewis Energy Group, he was an amateur airplane mechanic. His journey into aircraft collecting began in 1981 with an Aranca Chief, and since then, his collection has grown to include 24 aircraft, most of them classic Warbirds that now fly as the Lewis Air Legends. Many of these aircraft were rescued from exotic locations. For example, Glacier Girl, a P-38 Lightning, was recovered after 50 years under 268 feet of Greenland ice, and it's the only survivor of the Lost Squadron. Today, that P-38 has been painstakingly restored to near factory condition. Among the aircraft the Lewis Air Legends brought to EAA AirVenture Oshkosh 2025 was the Lockheed Constellation known as Bataan. This aircraft began its life as the military version of the Lockheed L-749, serial number 48-613. It was one of 10 ordered by the Air Force in 1948 and sent to Westover Air Force Base in Chicopee, Massachusetts to serve in the Military Air Transport Service, or MATS. The aircraft's first major role came during the Berlin airlift in 1948 and 1949. 8 C-121s, including 613, made nearly continuous Atlantic crossings, flying more than 5 million miles to deliver essential supplies to West Berlin during the Soviet blockade. Their speed and long range made them ideal for this critical mission. After the airlift concluded in September 1949, C-121s like Bataan were converted into high-speed VIP transports for the U.S. Air Force. Now, this involved removing the cargo interior, adding windows, and fitting a weather radar to the nose, making the Constellations the first Air Force type to receive this radar technology. In September of 1950, during the Korean War, 613 became the personal flying command post for General Douglas MacArthur, then Supreme Commander of the Allied Powers in Korea. He christened it Bataan, a name honoring the Philippine Peninsula, where MacArthur's American forces made their last stand against the Japanese invasion in 1942. It also served as a somber reminder of the infamous Bataan Death March of 1942. MacArthur flew 17 missions over Korean battlefields in Bataan, and it carried him to Wake Island for his meeting with President Truman in October of 1950. However, its most fateful flight was on April 16, 1951, when it carried MacArthur and his family back to the United States after he was relieved of command by President Truman. Bataan's service continued beyond MacArthur. It was taken over by his successor, General Matthew Ridgway, and in 1953, it also carried President Dwight Eisenhower and Vice President Richard Nixon on an inspection tour of Korea. It also served in the Pacific Air Command, transporting top officers until its retirement from active duty in 1965. In January of '66, Bataan was sent to the Boneyard at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona. While other aircraft were stripped for parts or sold to civilian operators, Bataan had a unique fate. It became one of 3 constellations assigned to NASA for the Apollo space program, and it was redesignated as NASA 422. The VIP interior was replaced with scientific instruments, tracking, and communications equipment, and it was used to monitor and communicate with the Apollo astronauts over the Caribbean and the Pacific. With the conclusion of the Apollo program in the 70s, Bataan was decommissioned and transferred to the U.S. Army Aviation Museum at Fort Rucker, Alabama, for display. There it sat for more than 20 years, exposed to the elements, and by 1992, the museum considered scrapping it due to maintenance challenges. Fortunately, Ed Maloney, founder of Planes of Fame Air Museum in Chino, California, intervened. He recognized the historical significance of the aircraft, and by October of that year, he'd successfully secured Bataan. a team of dedicated mechanics, volunteers, and military personnel worked for 9 months to prepare it for flight. And on June 23, 1993, after 23 years on the ground, Bataan roared back into the air for a ferry flight to Dothan, Alabama. Now at Dothan, Pemco Aeroplex repainted Bataan to its MacArthur-era appearance. The interior was reproduced to original appearance as well, based on old photographs. In December of 1994, Bataan arrived at the Plains of Fame facility in Arizona, where it welcomed visitors for nearly 2 decades. Then in April 2015, a new chapter for Bataan began when it was acquired by the Air Legends Foundation of San Antonio, Texas. Plains of Fame prepared the Constellation for another ferry flight, and on January 14th of 2016, Plains of Fame President Steve Hinton flew Bataan to Chino for further restoration. Rod Lewis entrusted Hinton's Fighter Rebuilders Company with the complete overhaul. Their work included the wings, tail surfaces, engines, wiring, and they also treated plenty of corrosion. The aircraft's restoration process was kept under wraps until May of 2023 when Bataan completed its first engine runs. The culmination of 8 years of dedicated effort arrived on June 20th, 2023, when Bataan took its first post-restoration flight. This time, the crew was comprised of experienced Warbird pilots and restorers, including Stuart Dawson as captain, First Officer Steve Hinton, and Flight Engineer Jeff Weitzel. They ensured the test flight success. Bataan made its second appearance in Oshkosh this year after its AirVenture debut in 2023. Following the 2023 convention, the airplane went to Aerometal International in Aurora, Oregon for its historic interior restoration. Lewis Air Legends plans to fly it on the airshow circuit, continuing Bataan's legacy. The airplane joins other impressive aircraft under the Air Legends Foundation's care, such as the last airworthy Douglas A-20 Havoc and the iconic P-38F Lightning, known as Glacier Girl. I had the opportunity to talk with flight engineer Jeff Weitzel to discuss the aircraft's operations.
I'm the flight engineer on the Air Legends Foundation Lockheed Constellation. Probably the busiest guy in the cockpit, also the happiest. I've been a gearhead all my life, and this is the place if you're into machinery. This is gearhead nirvana.
Certainly is. How did you get involved in, first of all, in aviation, and second, in this project?
I grew up under the tutelage of my father, Bill Weitzel, who built an airport back in New Jersey, Flying W Ranch. He was an airline pilot but lost his medical. He had flown Constellations, and I grew up at the airport. I was working on airplanes when I was 7 years old, and real fond of telling the story of probably my biggest inspiration to fly. I was mowing the grass there at the Flying W Ranch, an old John Deere 1-1 tractor, and I felt a presence coming up behind me, and I looked up over my shoulder. Here is an Eastern Airlines Constellation, not even 50 feet in the air. Went by so low that I waved, and I could see passengers waving at me out these big round windows. That airplane arced up into the sun. I saw the sun flash off the three tails, and then came around, headed for Philadelphia. The sun flashed off the propellers, and I thought, boy, that's the life for me. I was 9 years old. And I never thought I'd get to fly a Connie, but later in life I was able to do so down in Miami's infamous corrosion corner. The airplanes were pretty worn out and pretty tired. Nothing like this airplane. But then I went, I instructed my way up as flight instructor. Got lucky, got on with Western Airlines, and we were purchased by Delta Airlines. Purchased by Delta Airlines, and I retired in July of 2019 after 41 years with them. Always kept my hand in instructing on the side, and always kept my hand in maintaining radial engines on the side. And my good friend Steve Hinton, who I'd known for 40 years, called me up and said, "What are you doing?" I said, looking for something to do. And he started me out fixing up their A26, and then he called me up to the project when they needed a flight engineer on the Connie, and I've been walking around with a big stupid grin on my face ever since.
Talk a little bit about the significance of the Constellation. I mean, it is probably, depending on who you ask, included one of the most gorgeous airliners ever produced, piston engine.
I couldn't have put it better myself. Everywhere we go, the airplane just draws attractions. And people, everybody's got a Connie story. Oh, I got married, we went on our honeymoon, or I came back from the war, or I went to the war. The airplane in my day, when I was young, was the iconic airplane. I was in the Philadelphia area, and everybody knew the schedules, and we would go out to Philly. They had an observation deck up there. You would drive all the way to Philadelphia to go up on the observation deck to watch a Connie come or go. The airplane was that meaningful. Just something about the design, it draws emotion. It hasn't got a square angle on it. Everything on it is curved and beautiful. Yeah, I don't have enough words.
Talk a little bit about what you have behind you. This is really the control center.
Yeah.
I know the pilots think they're in control, but the flight engineer really takes care of it.
We joke about it. They can't even start the engines. Yeah, the flight engineer, this was designed very much like the ships of old. The captain calls for power settings, and the flight engineer does it. Now, the captain has a set of throttles, but like I said, I've got everything else. It's a big job. There's a lot going on. 4 engines, 10,000 horsepower. When you push the throttles up, and I'm doing that. He calls for takeoff power, and I push them up. When you push the throttles up on 10,000 horsepower, if it doesn't make the hair on your arm stand up because you don't have any hair on your arm, it's a pretty awesome sound and the power of it. Giant propellers. These propellers weigh like 940 pounds each. So where I'm going with all this is all this horsepower and all that whirling mass requires some finesse and care. Probably the biggest thing that I guard against is any rapid throttle movements, which can be initiated up there. But yeah, it's a busy place. I'll take you on a tour if you like.
Sure.
So we have the throttles. There's a set of them front for the pilots. We have the mixture controls. These are the fuel tank selectors. And then everything else on the airplane is pretty much electric. I've got propellers that are run by electric prop governors that are controlled by these switches here. Go ahead and turn them on so we can show you some of the fun stuff here. Okay, we got high lights and low lights, and I can run a governor, run each of the propellers separately, and of course I can feather a propeller. Out on the cowlings, we have cowl flaps that open and close. They're seen here and controlled here. And then the oil coolers are also, they've got doors that open and close, so we can control the temperatures, the switches that are there. And in very good fashion, those gauges are all the way up here. We have our boost pumps that we use, electric boost pumps, to pressurize before we start. Like most radials, we have a manifold pressure gauge, an RPM gauge. But where this airplane became exotic, when I developed the 3350, the engine is so smooth that if you have a problem developing, you can't feel it. You have to be able to see it. So they developed a thing called brake mean effective pressure. It's a direct reading of horsepower, so we have our BMEPs here. Those combined with the use of this ignition analyzer, I can look at every single spark plug. I can see every lead, every magneto. I can look at I can actually see the spark event as it starts when the breaker point's open, and the quality of the spark. I can even, to some extent, see the quality of my mixture control with this ignition analyzer. This is the breaker points opening. That's the spark event happening, and the length of this pattern, I can actually determine the mixture. And careful examination, I can see the quality of the magnetos, the distributors, the wires themselves. It's a magnificent piece of equipment. I won't fly a big 3350 airplane, DC-7s or Connie. I won't fly without it. It's that essential. The big thing that's wonderful about it is if you have a problem developing in the cylinder, you're going to see it in the spark. And for instance, if you lose a spark plug, it may be because something's rattling around inside that cylinder. And if you see both spark plugs go out, we've got what's called a double shorted secondary, and it's a mandatory shutdown. You want to shut the engine down right away. So, tremendous, I think, tremendous technology for 1948. This was the leading edge. The analyzer is controlled down here on the desk. I can select every cylinder and each engine with these switches here. And like I said, I can see every single spark plug. One of the things I report to the pilot after my initial sweep, right after the initial power reductions, when we get to climb power, as I sweep the analyzer, and I tell the captain that we've got 144 happy children. So, sometimes I don't tell him that. Sometimes I say other things. We've had quite a learning curve with it, but I'm really happy to report that the last two legs, especially the leg from Portland back here, was fantastic. The airplane is dialed in. It's running great.
Great. Where do you go after this?
That's been debated. We got a lot of detail work yet to do on the interior. We might go back to Aurora, Oregon, Aerometals, who did the magnificent, amazing interior. They got a lot of things they want to fine tune. We've got things we want to do to the airplane. Ultimately, we'll be based either in San Antonio or at Montrose, where we have hangars for this and the other Warbirds.
Good. What is it like when you're flying and you're thinking about? I mean, obviously you're thinking about all the engines, make sure everything is in the green, right? But there's got to be a point in the flight where you just kind of take a minute and absorb what it's like to fly this kind of historic airplane.
I find myself pinching myself frequently. One of the really neat things we have that, of course, the original airplane didn't have is this monitor. I've got cameras all over the airplane. Camera up on the tail, cameras in the wheel wells, cameras looking out at the engines. And when I really need to get back to reality, I look at that thinking, I can't believe I'm so lucky to do this. And the funny thing about it is they're joking with me. This is now my view of the world because I can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even see out when they're doing the landing. I'm sitting down low. So yeah, this is my reality here in a box. So yeah, it's great fun. Like I said, I'd be more than happy to share some video that I have of all of the various things.
Oh yeah.
Actually, we try to tape. Listen to me. We try to video every takeoff because there's a lot going on. And well, for instance, here's a piece of tape we put here because we're dialing in the VMEPs. Number 4 is not quite reaching. This is where we're supposed to be on takeoff. And what that means is we probably need to bleed it. It's a hydraulically operated device out there. So we video just about everything to help us, very much like a football team does. We do a debrief and then later on we look at the tape to say, hey, this didn't sound right, that didn't look right. And of course I'm reporting a lot of it back to Steve, who can't see any of it.
Right.
In closing, I'd like to thank Rod Lewis and his team for bringing Bataan back to EAA AirVenture, along with the Flood of the Cats, featuring the F4F Wildcat, the F6F Hellcat, the F7F Tigercat, and the F8F Bearcat, and for their hospitality in making the interview with Jeff possible. And I thank you for joining us for this special episode of Warbird Tube. We always like to hear from you. Any thoughts you have on this episode or ideas for a future topic, just drop us a line at media@cafhq.org. Remember, if you like the show, share it across your social media platforms, and remember, subscribe and click that bell icon, and you'll get notifications when new episodes of Warbird Tube are posted. Until next time, I'm Steve Buss, wishing you blue skies and tailwinds.